Hello, my name is Master Peter Brusso, and what you're going to see is a preview of my 3 DVD knife on knife fighting set. We do classroom lectures, target identification. We also go through what makes a good knife, a bad knife, and an ugly knife. And then we have some techniques along the way, so I'm going to give you a little splattering each of the discs here. It is viewer discretion, please. If you're weak of stomach, don't watch this video. All right, let's get in and see the preview, and hopefully you will purchase the DVD sets, and it's a great skill to know how to fight with your knife if you ever have to, and how to pick a good knife, especially if you're a prepper or a survivalist. All right, let's get into the DVD. All-weather knife fighting is what we're going to...
explain that.
Yeah, it sounds odd, but basically in the knife fighting systems that are out there pretty much come from a hot weather area. In other words, they're hacking and slashing across your body and arms, and they assume your arms are bare.
I see, because of
right.
hot weather clothing.
If you're up in the Arctic, that's not going to be true.
Right.
And so your system of knife fighting had better not rely on a bunch of little slashes to take the person down. It has to be very strategic and has to be able to puncture and go through heavy clothing.
Okay.
And most of the systems just aren't designed to do that. You betcha. The simple 5 targets, we're going to see those. So CJ Sensei, if he would come on in, and we'll take a peek at those.
CJ, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right. Our first major target that we talk about is literally the neck. And the neck contains actually 3 different targets inside of it. We have the throat, and we have the carotid arteries on either side. Next we'll talk about is the heart itself. The heart sits approximately right in here. And the heart is protected by the rib cage. All of our strikes are rotating the blade parallel to the ribs, coming in between the ribs. Now in this technique you're going to be seeing the clearing of the angle of attack, as you see right there, but multiple attacks onto target. As you clear the angle of attack, you actually block and strike the arm that's coming at you or attacking the weapon. You're also cutting the ligaments in the arm and then moving up towards a attack on the throat and carotid artery, all in one move. After you've neutralized the arm, obviously moving up, cutting the throat. Once you clear the throat, then coming back around and making a very deep stabbing attack at the second artery, or the right artery in this case. The opponent, from the first attack, as you see here, you clear the angle of attack, and when you attack or strike that arm, the ferocity of his attack gets magnified into his arm. Then we get a wind and a partial carotid, and then finally a second carotid to cause death. It's very quick, it's very definitive, and you're right there maximizing your target. Now you're going to see when you block a weapon strongly, it can actually, and usually does, leave the person's hands. In the old school of thought, you block things very strongly, dead sticking them, dead blocking them. And what happens is, depending upon their power, obviously, they end up losing the weapon. They don't expect the block to be so hard. And unfortunately, you're right smack in the way of the weapon. We failed the first law, which is clear the angle of attack. As I'm showing here, the weapon literally will go in your head, your face, your eyeball, something of that nature. And it's really important when you do what we call a gliding X block, or you block the same kind of strength, but you get yourself out of the way, which is rule number 1, of course, and then follow on directly, keeping the economy of motion right on the target, which is a carotid artery attack, as I'm showing you here. Block, clear, and attack. Here you see, of course, the standard stomach attack, and we're defensive knife forward, position forward, blocking the arm, causing the damage, As the attacker comes in, obviously we're blocking the arm, we're going to slice the left carotid trachea and again back into the throat. Here you see us getting offline of the attack, blocking the weapon, boom there, sliding up in a reverse grip and cutting the left carotid and left and trachea, and then coming right back around to the right carotid. It's very quick, it's very definitive. You've worked 3 sets of targets, all 3 in the neck, all within 2 moves. Again, remembering to clear the angle of attack of the weapon, getting offline. We're going to clear the angle of attack of the weapon. We're going to control that weapon. We're going to neutralize and disarm the aggression.
The target areas. How about the anatomy of a blade?
Good point, Dave. Believe it or not, the handle is the most important part of a blade. It's not intuitive.
I was going to say that.
But if you can't hang on to it, then what good's it going to do you? One of our acid tests that we always talk about is if you've got a favorite blade is to put Wesson oil on it and slam it into a piece of wood and see where your hand goes. Now, don't keep doing this.
Right.
But if you have...
That's what you have to be thinking.
Exactly, because when you hit a sternum by accident and, you know, it's wet from whatever, outside, inside, whatever, slick, then you have to think about losing that. And so one of the most important features I always talk about is how well you can hang on to that.
Okay.
And if you can't quite hang on to it, are the things that can save you with that. Then we go into the aspects of the blades.
Right.
Because we'll come together a little bit. And CJ will bring in our first blade for us to take a look at. When we talk about handles, there's, in this case, this is a blade that we end up throwing quite a bit. It's what they call a full tang, Dave. And that means the blade goes all the way through the handle.
I see.
There's no joint. It's one solid piece. But these types of wraps also have what they call a stingray skin in there, and you tend to want to hang on to that. It just doesn't want to leave your hand. So it's very important, and you can see how it fits very nicely in your hand so that it just typically doesn't want to lose it. While we're talking about holding knives, okay, because that is an important thing. People hold knives this way. I'll get it in different ways. And I'll do it for the camera on this side. What's important, you don't want to do that.
Okay.
Now, the reason why is came from monkeys, so to speak, or whatever, but we have an opposing thumb.
Yep.
Okay? Very easy to pull that out of there because you have no grip strength in your fingers.
Gotcha.
That's why you want to learn to hold your blade like that. That's a very important thing.